Massa. There's nothing to separate them as they hurtle towards turn 1. Raikkonen leads out of the first corner. Behind him is Massa. Next is Fisichella. First lap completed, the field looks like this. Raikkonen leads, Fisichella is second. That's a gain of 1 place. Massa is third. Fourth, Michael Schumacher. Alonso is fifth. He's moved up from 6th. Montoya 6th. He's down from 5th. Barrichello is 7th. And Villeneuve is 8th. Charge here. He's just done a lap of 1:20 exactly. He's starting to pull away from Fisichella. The gap's now 1.5 seconds. Lap 4 of this Grand Prix. Raikkonen leads. Fisichella is second. Massa is third. Fourth, Michael Schumacher. Alonso is fifth. Montoya 6th. Barrichello is 7th. And Villeneuve is 8th. Raikkonen is punching above his weight here. He's just on a lap of 1:20 exactly. That's quicker than Fisichella. The gap is now 1.6 seconds. Raikkonen is punching above his weight here. He's just on a lap of 1:20 exactly. It's quite a significant lead he's building up over Fisichella. The gap has now grown to 1.8 seconds. We're on lap 6. Raikkonen leads. Fisichella is second. Massa is third. Fourth, Michael Schumacher. Alonso is fifth. Montoya sixth. Barrichello is seventh. And Villeneuve is eighth. Fisichella is driving at full pelt here. That lap was 1:19.88. Massa can't keep the pace as he pulls away. He's touring the circuit in the low end of 1:20. The gap now stands at 2.5 seconds. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. That lap was 1:19.86. It's quite a considerable lead he now has over Massa. The gap has stretched out to 3.1 seconds. Let's see who the top 8 drivers are. Raikkonen leads. Fisichella is second. Massa is third. Fourth, Michael Schumacher. Alonso is fifth. Montoya sixth. Barrichello is seventh. And Villeneuve is eighth. Raikkonen is really on a charge here. That lap was 1:19.8. He started to pull away from Fisichella. The gap now stands at 1.7 seconds. Fisichella is driving at full pelt here. That lap was 1:19.74. Massa can't keep the pace as he pulls away. He's touring the circuit in the low end of 1:20. The gap is now 3.8 seconds. Lap 10. Raikkonen leads. Fisichella is second. Massa is third. Fourth, Michael Schumacher. Alonso is fifth. Montoya sixth. Barrichello is seventh. And Villeneuve is eighth. Montoya is going well, and that last lap was his quickest so far. That lap was 1:19.94. He's gaining on Alonso in front of him. He's touring the circuit in the low end of 1:20. The gap now stands at 1.8 seconds. Raikkonen is really on a charge here. That lap was 1:19.62. He started to pull away from Fisichella. He's been lapping at the high end of 1:19, low 1:20s. The gap is now 1.9 seconds. We're on lap 12. Raikkonen leads. Fisichella is second. Massa is third. Fourth, Michael Schumacher. Alonso is fifth. Montoya sixth. Barrichello is seventh, and Villeneuve is eighth. Raikkonen is punching above his weight here. That lap was 1:19.62. It's quite a significant lead he's building up over Fisichella. The gap has grown to precisely 2 seconds. Is happening at the rear of the field for 19th place. Liuzzi will have to make his stop in the next couple of laps. Montero might be in with a chance here.
He'll be wanting a good pit stop here as he's pitting first. He may well go for a short fill.
Let's take a quick look at the current leaders. Raikkonen leads.
Liuzzi is quickest through the first sector. The gap is now a tenth over 2 seconds. Nice driving, Liuzzi. He forces his way past speed with no real problems. A lovely move.
The best battle on the track at the moment is the fight for 4th place. Michael Schumacher has been out on the tarmac for a while. His pit stop must be due in the next couple of laps. So there's a chance that Alonso will be able to pass him after their stops.
We're sure he's got more fuel left in his tank than Schumacher. He just needs to stick behind him until he has to refuel. He should be slightly faster as he's got less fuel weighing him down. So if he can ring out another couple of laps, he should get past. As long as he can keep it going, that is.
We can see plenty of activity down in the Ferrari garage now.
Michael Schumacher is quickest in Sector 1. He's extended the gap by another tenth of a second. Looks like he's starting to respond. He looks as if he's trying to prove a point. That's reduced the gap by 4 tenths.
Michael Schumacher pits. This is lap 16. Raikkonen leads. Fisichella is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. He's up from 5th. Montoya 5th. That's a gain of 1 place. Michael Schumacher 6th. Barrichello is 7th. And Villeneuve is 8th. Michael Schumacher exits the pits.
decent middle sector for Alonso. The gap is now extended to 28 seconds.
We can see the mechanics preparing from our commentary box window.
Alonso continues to pull away. He's put an additional half second between the two cars. Michael Schumacher knows he has to respond, and he's doing just that. The gap sits around the 29-second mark.
Alonso pits. Here's the current top 8. Fisichella leads. Massa is second. Third is Juan Pablo Montoya. That's a gain of 1 place. Barrichello, 4th. He's up from 5th. Alonso is 5th. Raikkonen 6th. Webber 7th. And Schumacher is 8th. Alonso leaves the pits.
Alonso is ahead. He's done it. A brilliant drive sees him exit the pits ahead of Schumacher.
The battle for the final podium spot is reaching a critical point. Montoya can't have more than a few laps worth of fuel on board. He must be coming in soon. That might open the door for Barrichello.
We believe he's got more fuel remaining than Montoya. All he needs to do is stay with him until he pits. He should be a little quicker without so much fuel in his tank. If he can keep going for a few more laps, he should get past. That's assuming he can get a few more laps out of it, of course. Montoya is on it in Sector 1. He's extended the gap by another 1/10 of a second. Montoya continues to push hard, once again stretching the lead over his opponent. He's extended the gap by another 1/10 of a second. Barrichello was able to reduce the gap that time. He's reduced the gap by another 1/10 of a second.
A third of the way into this Grand Prix, Massa is first. That's a gain of 1 place. Montoya is second. He's up from third. Third is Barrichello. Fourth is Fisichella. He was in the lead earlier. Kimi Raikkonen 5th. Alonso 6th. Webber 7th. I can see the McLaren mechanics out in the pit lane.
He's raised his game, Montoya, and the fight is most definitely on. He's extended the gap by another 1/10 of a second. Montoya continues to push hard, once again stretching the lead over his opponent. The gap is now 1.9 seconds.
Montoya enters the pits. Montoya exits the pit lane. It looks as if the Honda mechanics are preparing for a stop. Into the pits comes Barrichello. Montoya screaming past our commentary box now. Exiting the pit lane is Barrichello.
I'm not sure Barrichello's done enough. He's coming out of the pit lane now and back onto the racing line. But Montoya is out on track ahead of him.
Look at Michael Schumacher. He's giving it all he's got. He's just on a lap of 120.25. That's significantly faster than Alonso. He's been lapping in the low 121 range. Top 8 currently looks like this. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Montoya fourth. Barrichello fifth. Alonso sixth. Michael Schumacher is 7th, and Webber is in 8th place. It's lap 26 of this Grand Prix. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is 2nd. Massa is 3rd. Montoya 4th. Barrichello 5th. Alonso 6th. Webber 7th. He's moved up from 8th. And Schumacher is 8th. He's down from 7th. are as follows. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Montoya fourth. Barrichello fifth. Alonso sixth. Webber seventh. And Button eighth. That's an improvement for Raikkonen. It's his fastest lap of the Grand Prix. That lap was 1:19.56. That's considerably faster than Felipe Massa. He's touring the circuit in the low end of 1:20. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Montoya fourth. Barrichello fifth. Alonso sixth. Webber seventh. And Button eighth. Place, but there's a good contest happening at the back of the field. We expect that E-Day is going to pit soon. Montero might be in with a chance here.
I expect he'll be first in. I suppose there is a chance if everything goes smoothly. There's always the possibility that they'll short fill him to get him out in front. Applies the pressure in sector 1. The gap has now increased to 1.7 seconds. Responds well. He's closed the gap by another 0.2 of a second. Montero is faster once more. He's slowly closing in. The margin has shrunk by another 10.
We can see the Midland mechanics out in the pit lane now.
Ide is starting to raise his game. He extends the gap by a fairly substantial 0.8 of a second.
After 32 laps, Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Montoya fourth. Barrichello fifth. Alonso sixth. Webber seventh. And Button eighth.
Montero responds well. The gap now stands at 1.3 seconds.
Montero enters the pit lane. Montero exits the pits. The Super Aguri mechanics are out in the pit lane. Ide drives into the pit lane.
At the moment, Montero just isn't close enough to be any real challenge. A decent effort from Ide's pit crew should be enough to keep him back out in front.
Here's the current top 8. Fisichella leads. Ide exits the pit lane.
Ide speeds back out ahead. There was a fair chance of Montero gaining a place then, but he wasn't up to the challenge.
The battle for the lead is hotting up. Fisichella must have to stop soon. There is a light at the end of the tunnel here for Massa.
He's going to have to give it everything he's got though. We think he's carrying more fuel than Alonso, but he's a fair way back at the moment. He'll need to stay out a few laps longer and really push himself hard if he wants to get past after their stops. That's a good end to the lap for Fisichella. He's extended the gap back to his opponent by half a second with some awesome driving.
We can see the mechanics preparing from our commentary box window.
Fisichella moves further ahead. The gap is now over 5 seconds, 0.1 over to be exact. Fisichella completes a good second sector. The gap has now increased to 6.4 seconds.
Fisichella comes into the pits. The top 8 are as follows. Massa is first. That's a gain of 1 place. Montoya is second. He's up from third. Third is Barrichello. Fisichella is away.
Massa has been strong through the middle part of this lap. The gap has now increased to 21 seconds. Fisichella's not going to take it lying down. He's starting to push on now. The gap is 21 seconds.
We can see plenty of activity down in the Ferrari garage now.
Fisichella moves closer in. The gap has been closed to less than 21 seconds.
Massa is in the pits.
This is a perfect opportunity for Fisichella. It doesn't look like Massa has done enough to hold on.
That's Fisichella passing our commentary position now. Exits his box. We're on lap 38. Fisichella leads. That's a gain of 2 places.
Massa is back up to speed now. Fisichella is back on track now, getting himself back up to racing speed.
Dead on. That's considerably faster than Felipe Massa. His lap times have been in the mid 149s. of his weight here. That was a lap of 1:21 dead on. That's considerably faster than Felipe Massa. The gap is now 3.3 seconds. Race distance. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. And Button eighth. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. He's just on a lap of 1:20.91. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap is out to 2.1 seconds now. Is really turning up the heat here. He's just on a lap of 1:20.27. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap has grown to precisely 4 seconds. Let's see who the top 8 drivers are. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. And Button eighth. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. That lap was 1:19.54. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap has grown to exactly 5 seconds. This is lap 44. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. And Button eighth. For 18th place, but there's a good contest happening at the back of the field. We expect that E-Day is going to pit soon. Montero might be in with a chance here.
He'll most likely be first in. He was first in last time he pitted. I suppose there's a chance if his pit stop goes as planned, they'll probably short-fill him. Montero is quickest through the first sector of this lap. He is really pushing hard. That's a further 0.4 of a second off his deficit. E-Day is starting to raise his game. The gap is now out to 7/10. Montero has caught up and taken him. What a move! E-Day attempted to keep him at bay, but he slipped past him easily.
Action out on track at the moment is the battle for 7. Surely Webber can't stay out much longer. Webber must be stopping soon. That'll give Rosberg an opportunity to get past.
He'll probably be in first this time. I think he may have a chance if everything goes like clockwork. They may even short-fill him to get him out first. Great first sector by Rosberg. He's pulled closer by another 0.9 of a second. Situation and has raised his game. The gap is now 2.3 seconds. Rosberg is picking up some decent speed now. He's reduced the gap by another 1/10 of a second.
The Williams team are out, ready for one of their cars.
It looks like Webber is aware of the situation and has raised his game. The gap is now out to 3.6 seconds. Control now. he was once again quicker through that last sector. He's extended the gap by another tenth of a second.
Rosberg pits. Let's take a look at the current top 8 positions. Fisichella leads. Massa is second. Third is Juan Pablo Montoya. Barrichello fourth. Kimi Raikkonen fifth. Alonso sixth. Webber seventh. And Nico Rosberg eighth. Rosberg exits the pits.
Rosberg goes fastest through the middle part of this lap. The gap is now less than 30 seconds.
The Williams team are out, ready for one of their cars.
Rosberg was the faster of the two through the previous sector as well. The gap is now around 30 seconds. It looks like Webber is aware of the situation and has raised his game. The gap, I say gap, more like gulf, has grown to a massive 30 seconds now.
Webber is coming into the pits.
It's hard to see Rosberg making up enough time in the final part of this lap to get by. Webber has enough of a lead to make a stop and get back out ahead.
Let's see who the top 8 drivers are. Massa is first. Barrichello is second. He's up from third. Third is Juan Pablo Montoya. He slid down from second. Webber has completed his stop.
Webber still leads. That could have ended up better for Rosberg. He's faced with a tough task now.
Barrichello's on a mission right now. Look at him go! That lap was 1:19.6. That's quicker than Fisichella. He's currently lapping in the mid 1:30 range. Fisichella is driving at full pelt here. That lap was 1:19.6. That's a quicker run than Raikkonen. He's lapping in the high 120s. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. That lap was 1:19.7. That's a quicker run than Raikkonen. The gap now is 5.9 seconds. Let's take a quick look at the current leaders. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. And Nico Rosberg eighth. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. That lap was 1:19.62. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap is now out to 6.2 seconds. With the leaders on lap 53, the top 8 looks like this. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. Nico Rosberg eighth. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. That lap was 1:19.56. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap has increased to 6.5 seconds. Here's the current top 8. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. And Nico Rosberg eighth. is really turning up the heat here. That was 1:19.56. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap has now increased to 6.7 seconds. Let's take a quick look at the current leaders. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. And Nico Rosberg eighth. Fisichella is really turning up the heat here. That was 1:19.46. He's putting distance between himself and Raikkonen now. The gap is now up to a touch under 7 seconds. With just 5 laps to go, Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. Nico Rosberg eighth. After 57 laps, Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth. Barrichello is sixth. Webber seventh. Nico Rosberg eighth.
There is still a gap as we watch the final laps of this Grand Prix play out, but Barrichello has made up significant ground. He might just catch him. At this moment, Montoya needs to stay focused. The size of the gap is now 1.4 seconds. Barrichello goes fastest through the second sector. The gap is down to 0.8 of a second. He's raised his game, Montoya, and the fight is most definitely on. He's managed to extend his lead by another 0.2 of a second. Montoya continues to push hard, once again stretching the lead over his opponent. The gap is just over a second, 1.1 to be exact. reduce the gap that time. He's managed to reduce the deficit by another 0.2 of a second.
Let's see who the top 8 drivers are. Fisichella leads. Raikkonen is second. Massa is third. Fourth is Alonso. Montoya fifth.
He's raised his game, Montoya, and the fight is most definitely on. The gap is now out to exactly 1 second. Was able to reduce the gap that time. He's slowly closing in. The margin has shrunk by another 10. Fisichella in first place has started his final lap. He's raised his game, Montoya, and the fight is most definitely on. The gap has widened to 1.4 seconds. As the race comes to a close and we enter the final lap of this Grand Prix, Barrichello has almost caught the next car. There is still the chance of some action here today. Raikkonen second. Barrichello was able to reduce the gap that time. The size of the gap is now 1.4 seconds. We've seen an amazing display of driving from Fisichella this afternoon. Barrichello certainly looks to have the better of his opponent at the moment. He's reduced the gap by another 1/10 of a second. He's done it! Fisichella powers across the line in first place, 10 points. Barrichello goes fastest through the second sector. He decreases the margin by 0.3 of a second. Raikkonen will cross the line second. Silverstone comes up trumps again, another fantastic race. And so we conclude the final part of this first European leg. We'll be back here in mid-July to decide some of the other famous European races like Manicourt in France and the second German Grand Prix venue, Hockenheim. In the meantime, we travel to Montreal, Canada for another captivating F1 race on the famous Gilles Villeneuve circuit. Following that, we'll be revisiting the scene of much controversy with regard to tyres in 2005, Indianapolis. See you there.